Welcome to Spiritual Insurgency. I'm Jason Lupo with my co-host Aaron Luha.
Good morning, everybody.
And today we have a roundup of the latest news, starting with J.D. Vance speaking in India about trade relationships. If you've heard the news, the latest news, India is partnering with the United States in this tariff war. The Indian government has completely eliminated tariffs into U.S. goods going into their country, and the U.S. will do the same. So a reciprocal trade agreement that has worked out. India being host to, what is it, like couple billion people?
1 billion.
1 billion
And growing.
people and growing. And India does import a lot of U.S. goods. I think it was interesting. We had a couple comments on one of the videos that were where we talked about the trade war taking place, and they said that it's unfair that we're charging tariffs to countries where they're importing goods to this country, and basically that the United States was only a consumer country. Ladies and gentlemen, we are the #1 importer of goods from across the globe. Not all of that comes from China, and not all of that comes from small countries. We are the #2 exporting country in the world. It's not like we do not produce anything anymore. That is not the case. The media has gone to lead the entire country to believe that the United States does not produce its own goods anymore. That why do we need to charge reciprocal tariffs because we don't export anything? You guys are wrong. We are the #2 exporting country in the world. So J.D. Vance goes to India. He has this speech. We're going to roll a portion of this speech, and then we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. It's only going to be about a minute away.
And so today I come here with a simple message. Our administration seeks trade partners on the basis of fairness and of shared national interests. We want to build relationships with our foreign partners who respect their workers, who don't suppress their wages to boost exports, but respect the value of their labor. We want partners that are committed to working with America to build things, not just allowing themselves to become a conduit for transshipping others' goods. And finally, we want to partner with people and countries who recognize the historic nature of the moment we're in, of the need to come together and build something truly new, a system of global trade that is balanced, one that is open, and one that is stable and fair. Now, the most profound responsibility I believe that all of us have is not to ourselves, but to the next generation, to make sure we leave them with a better society than the one that our parents and our grandparents gave us. And this is the world that America seeks to create with you. We want to build a bright new world, one that's constantly innovating, one that's helping people to form families, making it easier to build, invest, and trade together in pursuit of common goals. Now, I believe that our nations have much to offer one another. And that's why we come to you as partners looking to strengthen our relationship.
So here we have J.D. Vance makes it very clear that the United States is interested in partnering with countries that want a trade agreement that is fair, and that's in the best interest of both countries. And for years and years and years, like I've said before, the rest of the world has been unfair to the United States in terms of allowing the United States to bring goods and services into their country without an excessive tariff. And so now what Trump is doing is going back to the negotiating table. This is a great deal for the millions of Americans that are working in agriculture, that are working in manufacturing, that basically the cost of or how much profit is going to be taken home by these companies will only increase, allowing additional manufacturing and goods production to take place in the United States as the tariffs across the globe continue to be reduced for American product. As tariffs decrease on American product, more product gets exported. This is a great way to ensure that the United States does not end up in that recession that we have been talking about in this country for years.
I think another aspect of this trade war issue that's not being discussed, that should be front and center, is that we're not encouraging America to be a producer nation or an exporter nation. It's not entirely done simply by engaging in trade wars with by applying tariffs. There needs to be economic incentives. There needs to be tax incentives for companies to make things in the United States. And so I hear so much talk about, well, the trade wars are going to help the economy, and that this is something the American people should get behind, and we should be applauding Trump for holding his ground. And it's not that I'm opposed to any of that. What I have an issue with is that we're not talking enough about making America a net exporter, making America make things again. And I think that that's such a critical part of the conversation, because in biblical terms, work gives dignity, and it gives men purpose. And I believe that when we incentivize China through bad trade deals that Trump so talked about, especially back in 2016, it stripped the dignity of the American male worker. And I think we really need to talk just as much about these economic and tax incentives to encourage production in the United States, just as much, if not more, as we are discussing these tariffs.
Yeah, and we are seeing that as more and more states are adopting a higher minimum wage. They've already greatly increased the minimum wage for an exempt worker. As we saw the Obamacare roll in and start requiring smaller organizations to provide health insurance for their employees, and pay a portion of that. As we've seen all these laws take place and transform, reducing the American potential for profit and profitability because taxes are skyrocketing and the fees that businesses have to pay to employ a worker keep going up. And so something's got to change. We have to bring in more. And as importing American product in other countries becomes untaxed or untariffed, it allows those countries to import a lot more. It drives the cost of goods down for those citizens of those countries that have worked with the United States. And at the same time, the American public who are buying goods and services manufactured overseas, when those tariffs are reduced because of a net neutral tariff agreement, then the American public will be able to save more of their hard-earned dollars.
You want to talk Pope?
I love talking the Pope. Let's talk the Pope.
Let's talk the Papa. So I don't know if anybody heard this, but the Pope died. Just kidding. What's interesting about this issue is that J.D. Vance visited him the day before, and the internet is going crazy with conspiracies on the timing of this. And we'll touch on that lightly, but I think what's more important before we get into the conspiracy behind it is really the practicality behind it, is what's the future for the Roman Catholic Church, and how should we as believers, because I don't see a division between Protestants and Catholics. I am really personally advocating for the unification of the church under one banner, which is Jesus Christ, but I digress. I think that the conversation that needs to happen in the next couple of days, number one, is the next pope needs to address the Vatican's financial corruption. There's a vast wealth, secretive banking, and past scandals that should be scrutinized. Number two, the global decline of Christianity. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but I know what is true is that Jesus came for the one. And so the new pope should be narrowly focused on how do we obey the Great Commission and make disciples of all nations. Number three is the liberalization of doctrine. I think a lot of people looked at Pope Francis as this liberal bulwark, and that the next pope should be conservative. I think that the global trend is this rejection of wokeism. And as we saw that play out politically in the United States with the election of Trump, we're going to see the same energy behind Catholics calling for a conservative pope as we go into this process of, I guess they blow smoke out the top or something like that.
You don't know the process of the conclave?
I don't want to get into it, Jason, but there's a lot of cigar smoking, I guess, at the Vatican.
You just remember the smoke. Yeah. It is, the conclave will start 15 to 20 days from the Pope's death. If the cardinals will enter into a vow of secrecy, will go behind closed doors. If they have come to the end of the basically the they're voting and they have not chosen a pope, they will send black smoke,
There you go.
basically implying that they do not yet have a pope. When they finally do have a vote and a final consensus as to who should be the next pope, if that cardinal accepts the job, then they will send out white smoke.
Yeah, so global power has always been about the church and the state sort of merging. That's kind of the church history story, right? To oversimplify it. So I think with this next nomination, there's going to be a conversation about, is this next one going to be a globalist? Is this one going to rally? Is this next pope going to defend demographic shifts? You know, Europe's Christian identity is fading due to mass immigration. Is the next pope going to speak against this open border sort of globalization experiment that we're under right now? Well, also, will the next pope ease tensions between evangelicals and Catholics? And you know, what is the implication of the pope's death? Is this going to push a post-Christian world order where the global elites and their World Economic Forum and UN mechanisms going to take over the planet, or are we going to obey the Great Commission? So all of these things, I think, are shaping the conversation with the pope.
So here's the problem, and I know that everybody that's probably listening to this show, watching this show right now, is probably like, yeah, it would be nice to have a anti-globalism, anti-humanism, more conservative pope. It's not going to happen. So of the members of the College of Cardinals, currently it's made up 108 of those members were appointed by Pope Francis. Benedict appointed 22 of the ones that are currently seated, and John Paul II has appointed 5 of the ones that are currently seated. Obviously, we're quite a few years out of the departure of John Paul II, and so unlikely that many of his cardinals are still there. But what that means is that you have a entire makeup of the College of Cardinals that are going to be more progressive, because that's what Pope Francis had chosen to basically fill in those vacancies. And so you have a progressive College of Cardinals. It's very unlikely that we see a more conservative choice in terms of the Pope and the papacy.
Well, the conspiracy world would echo what Jason's saying via reach. Excommunicated Archbishop Viggiano knew exactly who the Pope really was. He's going on air, on record, saying that Pope Francis was a Jesuit Freemason working hand in hand with Klaus Schwab on demolishing the church according to the whims of the deep state. He was not a friend of the world. The Pope wanted the Great Reset, but they were stopped. Is it a coincidence that Klaus Schwab stepped down right as the Pope died? Very interesting indeed. So I'm going to quote Viggiano, and I want to hear Jason's take on this. But the fourth revolution, theorized by Klaus Schwab, not a neutral spectator, but actually a zealous cooperator who abused his own moral authority in order to support the project of the dissolution of traditional society. He pursues the project of the demolition of the church in order to replace her with the philanthropic organization of Masonic inspiration. There is the criminal conspiracy between the deep state and the deep church. I never heard that, the deep church. What are your thoughts on Archbishop, the one who was excommunicated, letting loose on the Pope?
I think that it's very clear that Pope Francis had an agenda, and Pope Francis's agenda was nothing like the Catholic traditionalism and the Catholic morality that we have seen come from the Vatican for so long prior to Pope Francis. I mean, Pope Francis was a huge departure from previous popes. Came in at a time where the Catholic Church is in shambles from crisis, from the sexual misconduct stuff that kind of got swept under the rug for so long within the church. So he comes on the heels of the scandal. He comes on the heels of mass cultural change, not only in Europe, but really across the globe. And so as the entire world is looking at sin and accepting of sin, here comes along Pope Francis to usher in the kind of quote unquote acceptance of that sin throughout the church, or at least, hey, if we're not going to accept the sin, we're just not gonna we're just gonna be quiet about the sin. So definitely interesting. We saw some huge changes when it came to same-sex marriage within the Catholic Church, how the Catholic Church viewed the contentious topic of divorce, kind of molding to a more modernistic time frame where divorce is kind of okay, which is what we've now taught generations of children and families in this country, that our culture is no longer that of like, it's a shame to be divorced. Now it's like acceptable. We celebrate divorce.
Divorce party.
It's crazy.
Well, I think the consequences of globalism have come home to roost, as they say. A lot of the dereliction of duty on the behalf of the Roman Catholic Church. Now, forgive me, I think the Catholic Church does an excellent job in defending life, but I think the church as a whole could do a better job at defending against the encroachment of globalism. And the CDC and the USA Facts are releasing some new numbers. U.S. fertility rate dropped to an all-time low of 54.5 births per 1,000 women in 2023, less than half its peak in 1957, which was 122.9. So all 50 states saw declines between 05 and 22. Utah saw the sharpest decline in birth rates of 33.9. Now, why is this important? Well, it's important because in order for the West to survive, because the West has been and is currently positioned to be the defender of Christendom, the defender of the faith, that if we're not making enough babies, the East and nations that have overwhelming majorities of non-believing populations, if they keep multiplying, then we're going to look up in 100 years and realize that the gospel is going to be a dying agent of change in the globe. So it's important that Christians make lots of babies. And this fertility rate drop, I also think, is speaking to the lower marriage rates. People aren't creating families. We have low testosterone levels. Our natural order is being subverted with the LGBTQ movement because men don't, their natural relations towards women have been perverted. So I think this is a big story.
Well, so here we go. Usher in the new sport of sperm racing.
Cool. Can you bet on that now?
You can. Polymarket actually has a line up. It is a USC versus UCLA matchup to take place on April 25th at the Hollywood Palladium in Los Angeles.
Are you ready to rumble?
Here you go. Sperm Racing, a startup founded by a team of young millionaires, announced representatives from two competing schools, the University of Southern California and the University of California, Los Angeles, will provide the microscopic swimmers for the inaugural sperm race.
This totally feels like a bunch of frat bros in a basement at a frat house, like at 3 a.m. Like, dude, you know, it'd be really sick if we had sperm racing, bro.
Like, okay, so wait, we got to continue the story.
Sorry.
The race will take place under a microscopic camera that will track the progress of the sperms as they attempt to cross the finish line.
The sperms? So you
sperms.
pluralize that. Okay,
Sperms.
got it.
The startup said there will be 3 races held to determine the overall winner, and the play-by-play commentary will be provided during each heat. There will also be instant replays, leaderboards, and betting through approved partners.
This is the end of civilization, ladies and gentlemen.
Quote, sperm racing isn't just about racing sperm. Although, let's be honest, that's hilarious. Co-founder Eric Zhu wrote in the Sperm Racing Manifesto. Continuing the quote, it's about turning health into a competition. It's about making male fertility something people actually want to talk about, track, and improve. Zhu wrote, health is a race and everyone deserves a shot at the starting line. When you look at the fact that we are in a fertility crisis in this country, the fact that we've seen miscarriages on the rise, the fact that we've seen birth defects and conditions on the rise, I saw a stat somewhere, and it's been a while, so forgive me because I'm probably gonna butcher the stat. But basically, like, America is the unsafest, the most unsafe country to have a baby in the modern industrial world. Like, of the countries that are industrialized, we are the worst country. We have the highest death rate and death incident of mothers giving birth in this country. I mean, it's absolutely atrocious. And so we've seen health decline, but they've been protected. Um, I've seen a couple of the clips from The Simpsons and Family Guy where basically they're making an indicator that basically the drug companies are covering up the cure for these illnesses, because if they cure the illness, then how do they sell the drugs to stop the symptoms of that illness? And those clips are going around and around and around. And here we have RFK Jr. that has come in to attempt to slow down this crisis that we have, this health crisis in this country.
Yeah, well, healed and happy and healthy people are bad for business. I mean, pharma and the medical industrial complex would be completely making very poor business decisions, and would be it would be a dereliction of duty against their shareholders to actually heal people and make them healthy. It's the reason why we need a parallel health economy. It's the reason why we need Christians to innovate this space and to build a new system from the ground up that glorifies God and heals people. There shouldn't be these deep profit incentives in keeping people sick. I don't call this capitalism. I call this vulture capitalism. It's completely unacceptable in a society that claims to vouch for this when they make an oath for when you're a medical professional and you vow to not
The
hurt.
Hippocratic Oath.
The Hippocratic Oath. I mean, the entire industry with respect to pharma and the medical industrial complex is in violation of the Hippocratic Oath. So yeah, I think that it's due time for a new system.
Yeah, first, do no harm.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what we've done in this medical industry that we live in. Well, this has been Spiritual Insurgency. Join us tomorrow at the same time, 3 p.m., for more fun stories and more fun news.
Same time, same bat channel, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. See you then.
Peace.
God bless.